Okay, welcome. This video is for the animators. Last time I did one for the modelers. Well, hopefully this will help you out, and I'll try and speed through it pretty well so that it doesn't take 18 minutes of your time or whatever. So we've created this new folder, main project files. That's where everything is. What you need to do is go into the for animators section, and you need to download some stuff. Here are the different scene files. You'll be assigned a scene depending on which scene you're assigned. You only really have to download that specific scene, but I'll download all of them, so just go here and click download. And there are two other files in here, you'll notice. There's the project assets details and the project assets low poly. The project assets low poly is assets that will be in your scene that are very low poly, and they'll help not slow down your computer. For people with fast computers, you may want to just use the project assets detailed, but it still will help probably if you have the low poly. So if you want to see how the final buildings will look, you'll use this detailed one, and if you want to see how low poly will look, we're going to use the low poly one. I'm going to get this low poly one. I don't know. Anyway, we'll see. But download one of these or both, and then you'll go and check out this other scene over here. This is one of the scenes. I'm just going to show you how this works. This is one of the scene files, and what it's doing is all these buildings, these are low poly buildings, the low poly versions, and as you can see, they're not very high poly. A lot of them are just cubes, but they're the same shape as the actual buildings. And so you can do your animation here without having it freeze up as much and move your characters around and everything, and go into pose mode and do whatever you want to. But then when you're done, you can bring in the high poly asset pack and see how it will actually look with higher poly, and when we need to render it, we can bring in the final versions, and that way you can be animating in this file while other people are using the other files on Google Drive. Okay, so we've just downloaded those files, and you'll have your downloads folder here, and you're going to want to make a new folder anywhere on your computer. I'm naming it fake folder, and this one is in my documents folder. So you can make it anywhere you want to, though. Now what you're going to do is you're going to go into this projectassets.zip. That's what you downloaded from right here, whichever one of these you chose. And oops, sorry. And whichever one of those you chose, you're going to have that here, and you'll have this project assets file when you're opening the zip folder in your archive manager of choice. Otherwise, on Windows or Linux, you can just click the extract here button. There's that button on Windows as well. So you can extract your files to your new folder now, and we'll see that we extract them and we wait a little bit, and now we have this asset pack folder in here. This is a folder called project assets, and this has all the files that our scene is going to be using in it. Now, this is the documents export. That's what Google automatically names it when you download it from the internet. And in here we have our scenes that we downloaded, and that's just right here, these 4 files. That is. And now we're going to extract all 4 of those into here. You don't have to extract all 4, just whichever one you're working on, but I'm going to do all 4. So let's say we're going to be working on scene 1. So let's open this up, and we should see our farmer and everybody in there. Good. Now, let's just say you're an animator and you want to get moving on this right away. So, as you'll see, these are outlined in blue, and that means that they're linked and you can't move these. If I press G to grab, it's not doing anything. They're linked from another file altogether. So if you want to have anything to do with editing them, you're going to have to go to this bone here, and the bone is a proxy, so it's still coming from another file, but you can change. It's basically like linking, except that you can change its rotation and location and scale. So that comes in handy so that we can go into pose mode. And let's say we're just going to do a simple animation here, but we want to start with a camera. So let's put a camera in here. You can use whatever camera rig you want or anything. I have all these scenes starting out just empty with no camera so that you can bring in whatever you want, because the camera isn't something that needs to come from another file or anything. So let's face it this way and then add a keyframe. And this isn't a illustration on animation, but let's just animate a little bit and add in another location keyframe, and there we go. As you can see, in this file I'm using the high poly assets pack, and I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. That's why it's going slowly a little bit when I'm animating. So there we have it, and I'll show you actually right now why we have the high poly assets pack. That's because that's the one I downloaded, and this project assets has all the high poly models in it, not the low poly models. If we want to replace this with the low poly models, we can download that and take this folder and name it something else like high poly, and then extract our low poly one after we've downloaded it to here, named project assets, because all the scene's doing is looking for the project assets folder. So if you name this anything else than project assets, it's going to disregard this one and look for the project assets folder. If I name this high poly right now, you'll see they stay in the scene because it still has all this information. But if I take this scene and I open it again, you'll see that it just like crashed or something. It has some of the files in here. I'm not really sure why, but the farmer has disappeared. Maybe Blender has a nice way of looking for things now, that it can find them in other places on the computer, because I have these in a lot of places on my computer. But anyway, it won't work for you, I hope. If it works for you, that is really odd. But anyway, just disregard that. So let's go back into our scene here. Name these the right thing, close out our scene, and go in here. I don't know what's going on with Blender. It just crashed twice in a row. And again. Oh well, let's not go into our scene. So let's just say we just saved that, and we've done something. So now you're on your Huckleberry thing again, and you want to share these amazing changes with the world. You add it in your camera, and you're all ready. So you go into your For Animators section, and you right-click on the scene file that you're using. If you're messing with scene 2, you'd do it on scene 2, but we did scene 1. So you click the Manage Versions button and click Upload a New Version. And now you want to find it on your computer. So wherever you had that fake folder in. Mine was in Documents, fake folder. So there we go. Here's our scene 1, and I'll click OK. Now you can see it uploads this new file. It shouldn't take very long because this file only carries and contains your animation and your characters. All those other files, all those other houses and textures that it has to take are there from the other blend files. So there we go. Now we have this new current version that was just uploaded just now, and this was uploaded earlier, as you can see. And now if we want to download any individual version, if you want an older version, you can download that, or you can delete a previous version. And since this didn't really have any changes, I'm just going to delete this one, and this shows something useful. Now suddenly we're in the previous version here, and now when somebody clicks to download this, just right here, they'll download the most recent version, and that is extremely useful. So if you're ever working on a scene that somebody else may have been working on, let's say it's 2 days later now, and I have my asset packs here, what am I going to do? Well, I want to get the most recent scene. So if I'm going to work on scene 2 now, but somebody's already worked on scene 2. So when I downloaded it originally, there may be changes since then. So I'm just going to download this again, and I'm going to click Save File, and click OK. And now we're going to look for it in here. And there we go. Now we have our scene file in here that we just downloaded. And so we can delete our old scene file and replace it right there. Now, since I have all the high poly models in here, it may be slowing down. Blender's crashing again. Oh boy. Let me see if I can fix that. Well, I've gotten it up. I've never really had that happen before. I think that those specific blend files are crashing Blender. So I'll check that out later. But I have it up here, so you guys can all see what we're going to do here. So if we want to replace all these low poly assets here with high poly assets, all we need to do is go back to the drive folder and download the detailed assets. So click download here, and sorry about that. Then you go back to your file hierarchy here and wait for it to appear. And when it does, you'll see that we have this project assets low poly in here. So, oh, that may be why it's freezing it. I didn't realize I had this left in here. Let's try that, see if now it'll open. And, hey, it didn't freeze. Okay, great. Well, it froze a little, but it didn't crash, so that's a plus. Anyway, let's just rename this now. This is high poly, so let's rename that high poly, because we want our low poly assets. And this is just demonstrating how easy it is to flip out the assets. So, bring in my low poly assets pack and wait for those to extract. And there we go. Now when we go in here, instead of the high poly assets, we will now have the low poly assets. And there's a reason the characters aren't there. It's because I haven't updated the low poly asset pack on Drive. But by the time you're watching this, it will be updated, I can assure you. So, there we have it. And now, what if you just want to update a specific model? Or, if you don't want to download this, where do you get the latest version? Because this version is only the latest as of this video, and it may be updated periodically. But this is just to give you a little more of an idea of what's going to be there. But to get the very latest, that's why you need to go into For Modelers. So you can right-click here and click Download, and then voila, you've done it. You have the very, very latest once that downloads, and the modelers will be putting their files in here. And that takes a while to download the entire pack. So what if you don't want to do that? What if you just want to download the latest version of the rat? Well, you can just click download on there, and then you go into your file hierarchy here in Project Assets, wherever you got that from. So as you can see, there's no rat file in here because I downloaded an old version. On this newer version, there is a rat file. So just delete that and replace it with your new rat file. And there you go, you'll be all good. Now, what if you want to edit one of those, like the farmer or really any object? If you want to edit one of them, you can do that really easily using an add-on that is called Edit Linked Library. And you probably already know this if I showed you the modelers video, but oh well, you can click that, enable it, and now just click Shift and numpad / and it switches to this other file. Great, and now you can edit in here. But keep in mind, you probably don't want to edit this actual farmer's body, because other animators will be using him as well, and if you edit it here and upload it to Drive, it will edit theirs as well. So just be considerate, and if you're editing the actual farmer, then tell everybody that you're doing it and make sure everybody's fine with whatever you're doing. If you're editing this rig though, what you can do is just keep your own version of your rig on your computer, and let's say you need to edit the rig, so you go over to the rig file and go in edit mode and edit something. Keep this version on your computer and you'll be all good. And you can use this rig in your scene file however much you want. And if you really do want to edit something or add something, a good way to do it is to just create a new blend file and or take in the previous file from this other scene. We can just go over to this file and then save as something else and edit it. And then what you do is you would go into this previous file that we have here, this main scene file. We can just delete this guy and then click Control-Alt-O on the keyboard, and that is going to open a proxy. And so then what you're going to do is find the new file that you've edited or you wanted to add in, and once you add that in, you select the file that you want, and they're both going to be outlined in blue. The rig can't be outlined in blue or you won't be able to change anything. So what you need to do is click on the rig and press Control-Alt-P, and it'll tell you if you want to make a proxy. I've already made this into a proxy, so that doesn't matter. But then you'll be able to edit it and scale it. One more thing about moving around objects. You can move around objects, but just keep in mind when other animators in other scenes are working, they won't have those objects moved how you did. So tell them if you've moved an object, and also keep in mind these aren't the exact final versions. They should be the right size and everything, but they may change slightly, and the modelers will be counting on them staying in relatively the same place. But you can still move anything however you want to, and when we update for the final version, it will take in all the updated files. So I gave you a lot of information that you probably won't use that much, so I'm just going to go back over the most important things. Okay, so you're animating something, great. You've added a keyframe, and then you go to another spot and add another keyframe, and there you go. Now, great, you want to share it with the world, so you go to your Google Drive and go into the main project files for Animators, and then replace it with whatever you had. I'm on Scene 4 by clicking Manage Versions and Upload a New Version. And now, when you're going to start working on a scene, make sure you always download the most recent version from Google Drive and just replace your previous file. And when you're done for a day, make sure you upload your file to Google Drive so that everybody else can have the most recent versions possible. Thank you for watching, and I hope that helped you out a bit, and goodbye.